Hey, what's going on, y'all? This is Khaliq Glover, also known as Khaliq-O-Vision, and welcome to another Hangout. And we're going to get into some great stuff today. I'm glad you joined us. People are just now rolling in, and we're getting started here. I see some of my boys coming in now, and today we are going to be talking. Basically, I wanted to talk about workflow because the workflow that everybody finds that works for them, and let me do this real quick. I'm gonna mute you, Dave. The workflow that we find that everybody finds best for how they need to approach getting through a project, whether it's mixing or whether it's preparing for a tour, whether it's preparing for a session to record for a specific thing, such as vocal sessions. Even like or what Dave does too, building a studio and an environment for a client. There's a workflow that's going to be effective, and we've all crossed different ways of doing things, and then you settle into something that works with you and your personality and what fits with the project that you're working on. The workflow is very important too because many times you have to morph your workflow according to the situation. And that's something else that, like I mentioned, when we have done stuff over the years and everything, maybe we got used to a workflow that worked for us and we got into that, but we were able to sense that our particular workflow that we got so used to doing may not be right for the new situation that we're in. So we had to be able to adapt. We also had to know that a new way of approaching and implementing the workflow actually exists and where to go look for it and pull it out of the toolbox. So I thought that'd be kind of an interesting thing to talk about from a lot of different viewpoints and everything. So, that's something good. Hey, Dave, what's up? Why don't you unmute yourself for a second?
Hey, what's happening?
Not
How's it
much,
going?
man. How you doing today?
I'm all right, man.
That's cool. That's
All
cool.
right.
Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you sound clear.
Okay, and I can hear you good too. So everything's cool, man. Yeah, I was thinking about what did I want to have as a topic today, and I thought that would be a good one because we've had to become so many different things in different scenarios. You especially because you cover so many different ways and with varying artists, varying personalities to deal with not just the artists, but dealing with managers, people hanging on, other people that are on the sidelines that want to throw in input. All that can affect your workflow, and I thought it'd be a good one to tackle, man.
Yeah, I mean, even decisions, especially even like last week, I just dealt with this changing, changing something as drastic as the approach to a studio, going from an in the box to a console. That's a
Yeah,
that's a big thing. But sometimes the weirdest things determine the direction. You know.
yeah. Yeah, isn't it funny too? Yeah, because a lot of people don't think about something like that, but one decision can just change everything and the whole thing, and actually derail what it is they're trying to accomplish. So
Yep.
that's where we come in. We're the ones that are on the front end thinking about stuff like that.
Hmm.
You know, but unfortunately, too, becomes a double-edged sword because while we know that we got to tackle that most of the time, we usually tackle it from all ends, but some things that get addressed up front, and then the decision was made not to ignore what was addressed, and then it comes around later again and it's like, well, we talked about that, but you didn't want to go that way, so now there's consequences for not having done it up front as opposed to doing it now.
Oh yeah, and then sometimes people that were there giving input in the initial phase might not be there. So sometimes the direction was decided by somebody who may or may not be around for the long run.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah,
so
that's
you got to
big.
keep track of that all the time. It's a interesting dance, but I just think back. I just finished a room, and you came in and tuned it and kind of shot it and saw all the things, and something as minor as where we placed a monitor was
Mm.
determined by the fact that they wanted to have a certain approach and add a console. And when you add the console, that adds some other qualities to the room.
Mm-hmm.
And initially the room had been in the box room. So it was very interesting that after everything was said and done and we adapted and changed, the room still has the little difference in it. Put that monitor on the sidewall, but now the main approach is back to in the box, and it works.
Mm-hmm.
It worked the other way too, but it's just interesting. Something as crucial as, okay, we got to change. Okay, let's put the monitor over there. You do a lot of work to create, just all the things you need, only to have them change.
Mm-hmm.
There's no guarantee. So even though I could go, oh yeah, we got it in, and feel comfortable, it's not until it's finally said and done and it's decided that, okay, that's going to work, we'll do that. So it's just challenging, to say the least. But, in that case, workflow and purchase was initially being determined by somebody who had a idea in their mind that they wanted to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They wanted somebody, when they walked in the studio, to look and see faders, because they believed that gave people an impression that it was real.
Right.
And these are comments that we hear all the time. In a real studio, in a this, and a this. Every studio is a real studio. It's not this thing is fake studio.
Yeah.
But those comments come from people who are sometimes they have a level of ignorance about the total system and what's going on, or the total process of what's going on. There's that whole thing of coming from, well, in order for it to be a real studio, it's got to look like the record plan, or it's got to look, these are all real studios, and anything else is,
Yeah.
That day and age is gone.
Yeah, that day and age is gone.
The real person.
Let me put this to you, because we've had this conversation before too.
Mm-hmm.
There's something to be said on both sides for the fact that there's one thing as far as functionality, then there's the other thing is perception. So for perception purposes, to get bigger dollars and stuff like that, ain't nothing like somebody being able to just see stuff. You can have, you may not ever even use the stuff, but all the power you use for what you actually end up doing in your delivery, that's one thing. But the stuff, when somebody walks in a room, that's a business move, so and a perception move. So, we get it.
And again, I know we can't, I think it's safer to say you cannot compare a large format studio like a Record Plant or a Village or a Westlake. You cannot compare that to a home studio, to a project studio, to a laptop. You cannot compare the two, because they while they all may contain the same DAW, the same plugins, they have different other things available that give you the ability to create some other occurrences, live rooms, microphones, and all the other things that come with a large format facility. That makes it a different environment. But when people want to create a hybrid, they want to create a space that they can do things in, be it cut, track, mix, whatever, then that's where you have to kind of start drawing the line and say, here's what I need out of it, here's what I don't. Who's working there? They are, and the other goals you have. Do you want outsiders coming in there? Anybody of any caliber, And my initial thing when they wanted a console was just to give them the feedback. I think it's great, but I think generationally we're not going to have too many people who come in who are, of this age,
savvy,
who look at a console and go, well, what do I do now? Most of them are going to go, well, I don't need that. I just need a computer.
Yeah.
And that's fine. But when somebody insists, well, I want this look because I'm going to be videotaping and I want people to see fade. Those are other goals that you don't need to outlay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 to have a prop up there for when it's time to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
And so a lot of times for me, I just like to say things up front. Because if I don't have it to work with on the build out, I really don't want to see it wasted somewhere else.
Yeah, it starts coming in later. That's problems.
Yeah. So, but needless to say, like I said, it worked out. But it was one of those things where I just had to let what my opinion be known, and then after it all settled in, the decision was made to go in this direction we suggested in the first place, which was no need for a console, because it's more common when people come in to get to work.
Just get to work in the box. Yeah,
Good
yeah.
to work in the box, you know.
Well, that's the
Now,
workflow we're talking about. Sometimes you lose sight of what is your goal. What's the
yeah,
workflow that you're trying to? That's why I was saying. And welcome, guys. What we're talking about today is workflow. What, some of the things that you guys have discovered that work best for you to come into your ideal workflow, things that I've discovered and all that. And Dave and I were talking about over the years, we have multiple workflows that have worked for us because I have an ideal way that I like to work and get through something, but many times you have to adapt it to the situation. You have to adapt it to the artist. You have to adapt it to a long view that somebody may see for themselves or a long view that somebody doesn't see for themselves. It's both sides that we have to adapt our workflow for. And
yeah.
it's pretty big, man.
You know, it also, one other point, it also comes down to even the purchases you make. You know,
Hey, Dave, pull your camera down a little bit so we're getting the
oh,
top of
okay.
your head.
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, even the purchases you make. So, for example, for this studio, somebody wanted to get a motif and some of these other keyboards that are great keyboards, great common keyboards. You know, but I started looking at the Roland series. They have a series that's kind of patterned after the Juno because some of the people that work there aren't sophisticated. They're not long-term users. So you need tools that when people need to be musical, they can pick up musical instruments, just be musical. And they're plugged right in, you can get sounds up, and they can just do what they do. It doesn't require them to always, well, I need this guy because he works this, I need this guy because he works this. And the other thing was that there's some younger engineers who came and they looked and they were loading in, bootleg software. You know, and I'm not a big fan of bootleg software. I think, inevitably you only need to be working on a lot of things and have a lot of work on your table and have something go wrong in a bootleg software situation to understand what we're saying when we go, just spend the money. Don't use bootleg software. And if you're going to use it, figure out a way you can use it and secure it to a place in your computer where it's not going to do you some harm. Because what ends up happening is, in the long run, you now are only as smart as the person that loaded bootleg software on your computer.
All right.
You're at the whim of them and whatever else is going on their hard drive or in their world. And so some of these things I noticed. I also noticed some of the younger engineers insisted on, well, yeah, I need stereo knees, I need this and this, and I'm going, well, why do you need stereo knees? You know, it's like every event that happens isn't stereo, and if somebody's outfitting a studio, that a stereo need is quite an expense. It's quite a unique expense. You know, it's better to say, it'd be really great to have some good options for signal flow. Then you could look at getting maybe one or two quality mic pre's and a couple other things, but to have this thing insisting on something you read in Sound on Sound or something other place, it's so obscure when you're not looking at the other elements that are going on. 6 months ago, 4 months ago, this was a room, it wasn't a studio. So to go from 0 to 900 miles an hour in that short amount of time, and all of a sudden you want to put in everything that was in the last issue of Mixed Magazine, it might work for you and what you're doing, but that requires the owner of the studio now to always be in a relationship with you, and that's not why people own things. People don't own things so they can be in bondage. People own things so they can be free to do what they want with who they want. So one of the things is to kind of create that kind of freedom. And so it goes down to the purchases as well. Even purchasing microphones and other things. It's nice to have, oh yeah, my boy has a Neumann, my dude has a this, but you got to keep things in perspective with the kind of money you want to spend overall on all your gear. And then, like Khaliq said, this is the tools that will work for your process. Your process, not what's impressive. I've seen people consult about, they'll ask questions about, man, what do you think if we got the latest computer? And thinking that the fact that the latest computer was going to be in the studio is going to be an attractant for business. And I can't really say that that's a wise purchase because most of us never go out and buy the latest computer. We wait till the feedback comes in, till we see that there's known bugs and things have been worked out. But we just don't go run out changing systems. Some of us live with a couple of drives and 4 different systems back because we're still holding files not long, and if anything happens, we got to be able to fire it up. So there's a bunch of things that happen in the real world for people that aren't large format studios that you have to do in order to ensure that you can go back and work with a client or a song from the past and still be able to work with it and monetize off of it, you know, or if somebody brings something in from the outside. So a lot of it is proactive thinking. Proactive thinking. You know, and there is a list of, I'd be great if we had this, it'd be great if we had this, but look at kind of doing the purchases in a way that doesn't stretch you over a hole.
Yep. I hear you. You know, that's a big one. Workflow means a lot of things to a lot of different people, and I want to kind of go through the list and talk to you guys that are hanging out with us today, and you know, maybe you can share with us what you've come to arrive at as your basic, you know, effective workflow that gets you from point A to point B in any scenario with almost any client. And later on, like I say, we're going to dig in a little different when you have to go left, you know, because your workflow is one thing that you have your main way to go, but sometimes you got to throw all that out the window and come up with another one because the scenario or the artist or whatever demands it. So somebody go on and tell us what's up. Maresh, you were on here from the very beginning too. Why don't we start with you, man?
Oh, thanks. Well,
And what's going on, man? You looking like an Aboriginal monk or something up in there. What's going on? It's freezing down there.
It's a bit chilly out here. It's 5 o'clock in the morning.
Oh my goodness! You still in Australia right now?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm all rugged up and everything.
Yeah. Okay.
So
I thought we were gonna get into some Gregorian chants or something, man. Okay, go ahead, bro.
well, my setup is just a home studio. I use PreSonus Studio Live 16-channel mixer as my interface, and which I use for live gigs as well. But sometimes when I'm tracking a single instrument, I just hook up my M audio, you know, 4-channel interface straight into my computer, and whatever preamps I have, or you know, I just got only 1-channel strip. Yesterday I was recording a country pop sort of song, so that's all there was. I mean, for me, like from my perspective, at the end of the day, if they're happy with what they get, and you know, when they walk into my room, they're like, hey, I want to track this guitar, and in half an hour they track the guitar, they're happy with the sound. That's all they need. They don't need to know what you have and what you're plugging in where and what leads you're using, what brand of stuff you're doing. You know, as long as they come in with some sort of objective and they walk away happy, that's it. That's the bottom line, I think.
So how do you assure? So speaking in terms of workflow, then how do you prepare for that before a note is struck or whatever? Workflow is a lot of times is up here in the head, what you plan on doing. So break that down for us. What works for you?
It's a bit like doing a bit of homework. You know where things are and where. I think I'm sure every engineer is a bit like that, a tidy person where you know where your things are and you always keep things in order, and you know your sessions are named correctly, and you got all of documentation and in the right folder, and you got the whole track marked with the markers and everything ready to go before the client comes and sits in and all that sort of stuff. So I mean, that's sort of my little experience.
Mm-hmm.
And the great experience I had, I went to a big studio here near Brisbane, and the engineer. He's an award-winning engineer here in Australia, and he was still using Pro Tools 7.5 or something. That was last month. And I said, wow, it's Pro Tools 11 now. Did you know that? And he said, yeah, but this thing works, and I still produce great records, so I don't need to change anything.
Mm-hmm.
And so, what works for you, it might not work for others, but, you can still make records, I reckon.
Absolutely, absolutely. A good example, like me, I'm still on Pro Tools 10. I have a license for 11, and I installed it. I haven't changed over because you lose so many things, and I got stuff that works for me, and it's like, the things that I gain on it at this point, it'll probably change like it usually does, but I'm not as fast to change my workflow just because of software upgrading lately. I've still got my I've got my Mac towers under here for
Yeah.
my audio, and then my MacBook and all that. All that is fine for me for now. I don't need that new cylinder Mac and Pro and all that right now. I mean, I've heard some great things about it. I heard it's super blazing fast and all that. I haven't had a chance to play with it and toy with it for music. I don't know anybody at this point that I have run into that has used it for music. But video guys and stuff like that are swearing by it now. They're saying it's blazing,
I,
So I may go up to it eventually, but I ain't in no hurry. Workflow is working.
yeah. Well, I heard many people updating the operating system to Mountain Lion or something, and
Mavericks, yeah, I haven't gone to Mavericks
yeah,
yet. I got Mountain
and
Lion is cool.
they're stuffing up their doors and VSTs and whatever not. So I stayed away from updating.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. When you got it going, it'll keep the flow of your session happening no matter what it is you try to do. Well, it's cool. Let's move on to a couple other people and tell us about your workflow, how you prep for it, what you found that settles you in, and if you got even some tips, what worked for me. What I usually do is get started and I set up this or I do that or whatever. Chime in, a couple people. In fact, we got Tremaine. We ain't seen you on here in a while, bro. Why don't you jump on in?
Uh, hey guys.
What's up, my brother? Welcome back.
Hello. Thank you. Um, yeah, as far as workflow, I'm actually not the best at having a template or whatever. I literally, like every session, I pretty much wing it, which is bad and good at the same time because I don't know what I'm getting myself into a lot of times.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's
But
good. That's a workflow.
okay. So, but I mean, I still have like my general setup. Like the majority of the time, I'm cutting a ton of vocals, so I'll open up like probably 40 mono tracks and go ahead and label 16 of them, 16 to 20 of them,
Mm-hmm.
like background 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
All right.
like that. Have a couple of lead tracks just in case lead lines overlap each other, and I have my my plate reverb just for them to sing off of, just to hear something. I don't really do effects or anything while they're cutting. Just pretty much want them to hear themselves dry.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's pretty much it. And then on the mix side of things, pretty much the same thing, because these songs that I get, none of them are even close to being the same, so they all require something completely different as
Mm-hmm.
far as my effects and everything else goes. So I might use this delay on this song and then this delay on another song, so I don't really have a template locked in. And actually, I'm just using like a template for the first time for this stuff I'm doing in Atlanta right now, because I have to do 36 mixes,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all the same band, so it's the same everything from the TV show that we just shot.
Oh, cool.
So basically, I just need to fly in the audio files into this template, and so the kick and the snare, everything will kind of be in the same place since it all needs to sound the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then from there, make the minor adjustments. But this is now the first time I'm kind of using something sort of as a template right now.
Yeah. And that's cool because like you said, if you've got the consistency of it's the same basic thing, a jump off point is there's nothing wrong with that. I kind of like to work that way too. I used to I'm more like you, man. I don't work a lot from just templates, but I work from a basic foundational jump off point, I guess to say. So for example, if I know that I've got vocals I'm gonna do a certain day, then I have certain mics that I want to know I have them at the ready, certain mic preamps I know I want to have at the ready, and if I and part of my workflow is if I know who the vocalist is, I'll maybe do a little bit of studying of their sound, even if I don't know what the song is. If I kind of get familiar with their characteristics of their voice, I'll start thinking about, well, if they do this type of song, I'm gonna grab this mic. If they do this type of song, I'm gonna grab this mic and match it with this, that, or the other preamp to to combine the different best qualities of each to get there. That's a workflow thought process. Or if we're doing a tracking date or doing a mixing date, the workflows change up accordingly. Or if you got a crazy artist that's real temperamental, going to be real demanding, my workflow may be more on making sure they're just chill for that day, by making sure there's all kinds of little stuff taken care of that may have nothing to do with my actual engineering.
Right. And I was gonna, you just reminded me. So when I do have to do like major artists, and I haven't worked with them before, I call around. Like I called Dave, I think, when I had to do the Layla Hathaway stuff, because I was like, what mic does she use? And I couldn't get in touch directly with Layla because it was through some other stuff. So
what'd you end up using on Layla?
I think we used like a Beta 58. The situation was so weird, and so we were trying to, because it was like a live / studio situation. So she ended up, we had like a PA set. It was so weird.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like I'm prepping for like studio record, so I'm asking Dave all this stuff, and he got me some suggestions for her, but I ended up having to use like a Beta 58 or something.
That is so perfect, man. I love it.
Yeah.
First of all, Layla is a sweetheart, and she's an amazing vocalist. So you can put literally anything on her. That's why it really doesn't matter with her. She's that good. But the thing is that's so perfect what you said as far as you can have it don't matter what kind of planning you can do, you have all your workflow, and then you get in there and it's like, oh, you got to throw all that out the window and change it up on the spot.
Yeah.
That's a big part, man.
We just winged it. It worked.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I bet you it came out great.
Yeah, sometimes, like in that case, you're doing a PA thing and recording and documenting of it is secondary.
Right.
The real challenge is supporting her for PA. So her first instinct as a vocalist is going to be to grab like a 58, because you're in just a PA environment. She knows she can sing, so she's not going to be bashful about, oh, I needed this, I needed that. So it was real interesting. Yeah.
Yo, man, I got an embarrassing admission too, man. I was at I was at one of Layla's, I guess it was her birthday party, I think it was, or something like that, and we was at the house. And Dave, you remember when I used to go through Paisley Park doing my little flips and rolls down the hall and everything? Well, I decided I was going to do that one day in her birthday party. And of course it went horribly wrong. I crashed all into some stuff, knocked some stuff up. It was like looking at me, what the hell is wrong with this guy? Right in the middle of a birthday party, so not a good look.
Wow.
Don't be trying to do acrobatics in somebody's party.
Yeah, Khaliq will be walking next to you and all of a sudden decide to break out in a full sprint.
What?
That was back in my younger days. I ain't trying to do none of that now, but yeah, I used to do that and say, oh, okay, let me see if I can do this little flip here, or run up and down stairs and all that, Just a little crazy stuff. I got it from Dave Isaac. He's the crazy one. We used to be doing
Oh,
all
okay.
that crazy stuff. We did more crazy stuff.
You know, it never hurts to remind yourself what it was back then.
Oh yeah.
I want to give us a tumble, Khaliq.
Yeah, right. I ain't trying to break a hip right now, bro. A decade makes a huge difference.
True.
Yeah. Well, anybody else got anything? Who's got some good, like maybe a good helpful way that they work? Workflow. I think is very important because, like I said, the engineering getting there, that's like after you've done the mental process. The best things seems to happen when you got your workflow done up here and then start implementing as things come and adjust as things get thrown at you. Anybody got any stuff on that?
Can I ask you something?
On in, bro. Yeah, let's
So-
pass it over.
There's this approach I heard of someone mixing around a certain instrument or a certain sound. So do you guys, for instance, approach mixing as for instance, mix around the vocal thing or mix around the drums thing?
Wow, that's a great question. And like for me, when I'm mixing and I learned it, it took a while to learn it. So I learned it from just, some of my mentors and stuff like that. And most people have a way they like working. So the way I used to, when I was first starting out, because I saw other people do it, that I was learning from and everything. A lot of people started out with the drums and go to this, that, and the other. But then what I started finding out over the course of time of seeing a variance of a lot of different people is, while that is an approach, the thing that gets lost on a lot of people when they look at one approach is that's a snapshot that is for that particular time. And many times that way will work. But what I found is watching some of the guys that were noted for getting like the greatest vocal sounds and still having a strong track around it and everything, many times they would go to the vocals like almost immediately. For some people, when I was working in the for, like I said, for Kenny Rogers and watching them do country and western and a lot of other different styles and everything, then I'd see people building up around maybe vocals and guitars and stuff first, and then get the other things to support that. When I'm watching David Foster and all those guys do stuff and everything, I found out that that little rock element in the drums, and watching Humberto and some of these guys like do that, keeping that rock edge and element was very important. So it took me a minute to figure out that there's no one size fits all. You basically, when you mix, it's just like I said, when I talk about the size, when you buy shoes and everything, you go to a shoe store and you know your size, but sometimes you still gotta, adjust according to your size. So if I know I'm wearing, a 10, every now and then I gotta get a 10 and a half, and occasionally, depending on how the shoe is cut, I might have to get an 11, now like my feet are settled in at 10 and a half, and I'm like, well, wow, yeah, that's a big difference. I couldn't go in any one way like where I started. So yeah, I pick vocals up. If I hear a great vocalist, I know they need to be in front. I told you guys previously about back in the day when we used to always get hit with the Clive Davis mixes. Clive was super huge on vocals, and no matter how loud you thought you had the vocal, most of the time dealing with a guy like him, you usually had to turn it up even more. And a lot of other engineers ran into it too, so it wasn't just me being inexperienced or anything. That was just how he worked and made everybody work. And obviously over the years he's proven to be right. So you adjust your workflow from what you think it is or what's comfortable for you to what is necessary for the project. If I'm working on a vocalist and they're an amazing vocalist, then it's like they need to be absolutely, no question, completely crystal clear up front and just featured, and no doubt. I'd rather sacrifice other things than to have any question about the vocal at this point. Mindset I'm talking about. Other things, the track needs to be absolutely stomping, and the vocals have to be in there. Some things, the drums need to be in there. When you're working with things, certain styles, hip hop and things like that, the low end's got to be there. Ain't no question about it. and the beat and things like that. So just depends on what the final goal for what you're working on is, to make a long story short. Anybody else want to chime in on that? Because that's a really good question, and a lot of people will probably get faced with that.
Hey guys.
What's up, man?
They want to go first? Or?
Go ahead, Andrew. You were quick on the draw.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of mastering recently. It's all in the box. So like I've got a template now of basically my Pro Tool session starts with like 5 aux built, and all the I/O to them is ready for me to work with, because I like doing lots of stuff in parallel for that thing. But going to Vladdy's question, because I've been mastering a lot, I've found my mixes. I've kind of, instead of looking at instruments, I'm looking at like frequency ranges. So I'll start with the bass range initially. So I'll work with the kick and the and then the bass guitar, or whatever bass part's working with, and then I'll maybe go to the high end stuff, looking at the vocal, maybe the guitars and whatever else is knocking up about there, and then work my way back for the rest of the drums and kind of do it that way. So instead of looking at individual pieces, it's more like an homogeneous kind of sections, which is an interesting way of working. It feels a lot different, and I kind of feel like stuff gels better for me now, because I'm just looking at it as the whole thing together.
Yeah. I think we spoke about this on I don't know if it was a Hangout or one of my webinars or something back in the day, but I said I really think everybody should do it. I know one of the best, most revealing things for me was when I had conversations with mastering engineers, hanging out with Bernie Grumman and those guys down there, and asking them what was wrong with what I brought in there, or how can I make it better and easier, make your job easier. And they tell you little things, and you go in and start implementing, and they have to end up doing less and less to make your mixes really just sound good. Then it's like, okay, I'm starting to get it. That's a great conversation to have. And if you can't do that, just study what they're telling you. And mastering engineers are giving up a lot of information now, so it's a good thing to study.
Yeah, definitely. It's becoming less and less of a secret art, I think, mastering.
Yeah. All of these things, because mastering engineers, they were using parallel compression and mid-side stuff and all that, and nobody knew what they was doing back in the day. When I was coming up, none of this stuff that is like common knowledge now, nobody knew, and nobody was trying to show it or share it. So you guys have been getting so much stuff that can really shortcut you. Here's the thing, and it's interesting. I'm going to pose this question to you guys, because with all this stuff that's coming up now, and everybody's sharing how they do their workflow and their tips and tricks and everything, and what I'm finding out from a lot of my students is that they've got so much information, it still becomes a problem because it freezes them. They try these things that they are reading or watching in videos and things like that, and like I said, the whole key is knowing how to differentiate that this is a snapshot. This works for this one scenario, but it's not your music, it's not liquid. So if your mentality isn't liquid around that concept, you can get stuck in thinking that that's the way and the go-to thing, and it can totally mess up other things that you do. This is something that messed me up when I first started learning and reading books and getting a tip or trick here from an engineer that I was working with, and I'd watch their settings. I had to document it, so I kind of see what they were doing on the console and everything. Then I try to duplicate them on my stuff, and it just wouldn't come out the same, And it's like you can get all this information, and it can literally freeze you. So my question to you guys is, and I think this will be really interesting, I'd like everybody to chime in. What do you wish through your growth period, both as when you started and moving along, what do you think would have helped you more in your workflow, helped you get to a better solution? What is something that now it and it's missing, but it's like, man, I wish I would have known to do that and start there and then go here or there. Everybody chop that up a little bit for me, okay? Who wants to go first?
Well, my thing on that would be parallel processing instead of serial processing, because we were talking about the other day with bass. Like, for instance, you might have one bass track and then you put a saturation plugin on it, and then you put maybe R bass on it, then you put the Pultec on it, then you put some kind of compressor on it, and you're doing all this stuff in serial. And what you're not recognizing at the time that you're learning this stuff is that you're degrading your signal by doing that. And basically, what you want to do is have them on their own channels. You want to have a saturation channel, a sub-bass channel, a distortion channel, or a parallel compression channel, instead of doing all of those in serial, because that way you get all the elements from each section and you're adding to each thing instead of subtracting something to get something new.
That's an interesting point, Bill. And what I want to do too is let's hit both sides of that too, because I think would it be helpful, you know, I mean, I'm not discounting what you just said, but I think keep in mind that I think it should be an additive thing, because what you have to remember, and don't throw this out because you said instead of, and I think it should be in addition to as an option, because you got to remember when you listen, like I said, first of all, most of these processes are new things that are happening now, but there's a lot of great sounding records that only use serial processing. Way back in the day, there's a lot of stuff that was recorded and mixed way back in the day that when you level match them sound better than what's going on now, and all they were using was serial processing. So I wouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. I think all these and thinking in terms of, like I said, I learned a lot of stuff and then started relating it to the stuff that I learned through synthesis. So you can have serial, and you can set up your oscillators in a serial manner. One thing feeds into the other, or you can set them up in parallel as well. And when I started realizing, well, this is no different than sound design when I'm creating sounds in a synthesizer. Sometimes you want serial processing. One thing going into the other gives it a quality that you can't get with parallel. Parallel and serial give you two different qualities. So that would be the only thing I'd say, is to just don't say, I'm not going to tell you what to say, but consider that you, instead of thinking the word instead, you know, use in addition to. You know, does that make sense?
Or. It's either or. I mean,
yeah.
It depends on what you're trying to do.
What you're trying to do,
yeah. If you can do it by serial processing, fine. But what I'm saying is, as far as the general topic of workflow, what was helpful to me was finding out that instead of trying to add an R bass, let's say, on top of a saturation plugin and then get the same saturation you had to go through the R bass, it's a better thing to have the R bass on its own channel, so you get your sub bass from one channel and you get your saturation from another channel. That's just better for me, as opposed to all the tricks I used to try when I was only focused on serial.
Well, that's the whole key. Then, you know, you find out what works for you, and if you like it in the end, and if the client likes it, more importantly, if it gets you results in the end, then that's all that matters. There's no one right way or wrong way, you know. So we're going to talk about this from everybody's point of view, and everybody finds the things that work for them. Share the things that work for you, you know. And then what I would like to do with everybody, I want everybody to kind of share, and then I say put it all in one pot, because you know, it's one of those things where there's a lot of stuff out here, and I think the danger that I see a lot of people getting into, you know, is that a lot of people are you know, getting stuck in like one thing and not and maybe throwing out some of the what I'm saying is there's a reason why a lot of the old and the new work, you know, and the best way to get the most out of it is decide what you're trying to do. Like Bill was saying, if you're trying to do something and everything, you got to think about the whole process, think it out, what you're trying to achieve. Sometimes the simpler way is better to do it, but you got to know what it is you're trying to achieve, you know, because all this processing, we've got some more power than we've ever had before, and there's still a lot of guys out here that are doing all kinds of stuff and then struggling to get something, because when they put it next, I'll tell you a perfect example. What's his name? Oh my God, why am I? Tony Maserati. You know, he's confessed that he's done a whole lot of different mixes when he's on mobile on his laptop, using minimal plugins and things like that. And it's the thought process that gets you through some of that. And a lot of there's a lot more people that you wouldn't even realize that are are doing a lot less than you might think, because they know that some things require just minimal processing and get it through because they know what the final good sound is, and then you don't have to do a whole bunch of stuff sometimes. Other times you do, so it's just keep it in mind and always stay open, because sometimes the simplest thing can get you there rather than a whole bunch of stuff getting stacked in. And then when you get to other stuff, it can go to okay, it can cause problems, frequencies, stuff stacking on each other and all that. It's so funny because I got into when I got into certain things, and I would say, for example, do a project, and I do something real weird and out of the way and everything. It might not be technically the best thing, so that's what I say. There's no real right or wrong way, but I might do something that has the right character of that somebody likes. It's like, okay, wait a minute, that ain't the right thing technically, but I like it. It works, or something's weird. Well, that's kind of weird. I didn't think about it that way. So, always think about all these different little things and use all these tools. We've got so many things that we should, just do it. It was funny, Mod. I want you to dig in on this one too, because we talked the other time when you were talking about and we were talking about like me using that TalkBox plugin, and you come in and said, man, I was just thinking, man, what can you do with that? You can't do nothing with something like that. And it's like, well, you think about where you're trying to go and what you're trying to achieve. The most weird thing can do it and simple and take something out there. Why don't you jump in on that real quick for something like that, and then address your workflow, the things that have helped you get to it.
You want me to address weird and then workflow?
Well, weird and workflow all together, yeah, because, well, I'm talking to my Hotep. I know that's in there somewhere, both of them.
Yeah, the thing about you doing something weird, though, Khaliq, is it can stand out. Like you have a white wall and then some bright red color comes in and it just stands out in contrast. And what a lot of the mistakes, as you know, in the past, a lot of the stuff that ended up being a genius move was actually a mistake that nobody would have thought of to do because it probably wasn't right per se. So yeah, when you did that talk box, I was saying, what can he do with that? But I'm already knowing, bro. There's no you can grab anything and do something with it and make it a cool little thing, and that's what like right now what we're doing. There's no telling what I'll call up and do. I mean, I really don't care. I might grab a cup, put it next to the microphone, and this sound right here becomes a part of our mix. There's no rule to what I can do. It's just a matter of what I'm doing is a presentation, and how I present that is up to me. But do I get my message across? Do I get the emotion across? How I do it, I honestly don't care anymore. It's crazy. I do not care. What I care about is if right now I need you to feel something personal and close about this woman holding this baby, that's what I need. Now, how we do it, don't care, but I need that emotional feel. So if we use a talk box to do it, or if we, pull out a fan and talk in the fan, whatever we do, it doesn't even matter. You know what I mean?
I've done that one too, man. You ever record something with putting a mic on the other side of the fan?
Yeah.
Yeah, doing that. Or how about I did one thing where I laid down on my back with the microphone and just, swung the mic. Recording the sound. You just lay on your back, swing it, and record it, and it's going around giving a Doppler effect. There's a lot of things, creative things you can do. Just depends on what you're trying to get at. Something as simple as that was a lot. Well, but when I did that particular, I can't even remember what project I did it on, but when I did that, we didn't have plugins, but we did have all those hardware boxes. We had phasers, flangers, tremolos, Leslie, all that stuff, but it still wasn't giving me quite that thing that I was hearing in my head. So I was just like, okay, well, let me just get real simple. What's a simple way I can make this happen? And so, yeah, that's, you just go for it,
at your last seminar, you guys talked about recording your intent, recording the character, having stuff built into the track instead of just recording any old thing and then creating it in the mix. And that right there alone, that's huge. So if I take a microphone into a bathroom and yell at Bill on the microphone and have that reverb, that space be a part of the recording, that brings a certain character that we have to deal with in the mix. And if it's my creation, if I know the intent of this vocal and what I'm doing with it, I could go in and just start doing all kinds of stuff to where when you open it up, it already talks to you. No plugins, nothing. It already talks to you. And that's the type of stuff I'm doing now. It's getting into creative recording, but with intent, not just any old thing. Yeah. So I might have like Anna Rams singing to the back of the microphone. It's on cardioid pattern, say super cardioid, and she sings into the back of the microphone. I have her step back, I'll listen, step back some more, listen. Ooh, that's nice. Yeah. And that has the intent that I want, and have her sing into the back.
Absolutely.
And that in contrast to whatever's going on at that time or that just happened, that contrast, it sets it up. Yeah, so it's like we'll set up this moment, it's real close, and then we'll have this far away, distant, dark, grainy vocal come in contrast to that. So when you say weird, like I say, bruh, I'm all for it. We can pick up anything. We can pick up an aluminum can and make a beat out of that, like anything. We just, And what was the other thing? Oh, huh?
The workflow I was talking about, though, what do you wish that, say, when you started learning all this, and like I said, there's so many options, so what do you wish you would have learned to know to go from step 1, so let me start here, and get me to step 2 to step 3, still having all the other options we just got done talking about? Was weird is always an option, and if appropriate, sometimes it isn't. But what's step 1, 2, 3 before we even get there for you? What did you wish you would have learned?
I wish I would have learned what this last thing, which is get the recording good.
There you go. Yeah, great.
Period. Because, like I said, one of the things I ended up doing was mastering. Again, mastering was this mystery thing to me, so I started doing all this mastering stuff on everybody's project, and come to find out that the real thing was the lyric, the creation, and the recapturing of that creation. And that right there can make everything down the line easy. And I'm over here dealing at the end when everything is just the most horrible. And so now I'm dealing at the beginning where it's, okay, let's capture this to where I don't have to make her feel good with some tool or try to bring something out. She just naturally feels good. I sit down with the artist. My workflow right now is I don't even start recording. I have a conversation. I'm dealing with artists right now, and we know all this technical garbage, which you really don't need if you just capture some good stuff. But I sit down and have a conversation with the artist because I have Dave Hampton, Khaliq Glover, and Dave Isaac in my head saying, have a conversation with the artist and find out who they are, find out what these lyrics mean, and then have it to where they know what the lyrics mean, and have them perform it before we even hit record, and know that it's supposed to sound a certain way or feel a certain way. And then after that's done, when we go to hit record, it's done. It's easy.
Yeah, yeah.
So that my workflow involves that type of thing. We'll sit up and we'll train whatever is needed before we hit record. And I'm smiling because there's a young lady named Jocelyn who is about to be on my writing team. She's a singer. And, she came in. She had a wedding that she had to do yesterday, and she came in and she sang the song. Who's the guy who plays the piano and sings Everyday People?
Sly.
No, not that one. Not
yet. No. You're talking about what's his name? They got the model wife. What's his name?
John Legend. John Legend.
John Legend. There you go.
That guy.
That guy. He's singing a song that he has out on the radio right now something about I like your ugliness, everything about you, that like everything about you I love, right? But when she was singing it, she was concentrating on hitting notes and singing it exactly the way that he did, and it wasn't working out right. She has this raspy, soulful, old school thing going on, and she was trying to do what he was doing, and it just wasn't working out right. And so it took me 30 minutes. I stopped her. I said, okay, hold on. I said, sing that to me like you're saying it to me. First, we talked about what the lyrics were, and I told her, look, have a conversation with me when you're singing this song. Sing it to me as a conversation. And 30 minutes of talking to her, Harold Haney walked in. I said, okay, sing it to Harold. And he was stuck because she looked him dead in the eye like she really meant what she was saying to him, like he was supposed to give a response, and he almost gave a response like she's really saying this to him. And then she looked at me and made me feel some kind of way. I was like, well, I'll be damned, this shit worked. 30 minutes? It took 30 minutes. It took me a year back in it, like a year ago. It took me like 6-8 months, and I still wouldn't have had it right. But I've been practicing what you guys have been saying, and it just, man, it works. Wow. And so if we hit record now, that recording does it to you. Yeah, and so now I go back and I'm listening to all kind of old stuff. Betty Wright, Teddy Pendergrass, Jeffrey Osborne, Shirley Murdoch. I'm going back listening to all these old school people and watching them perform live, and I hear all this stuff that you guys are talking about. I know. And I'm sitting there like, and I'm pointing out to the singers, this is what we got to do. So our workflow involves that right there. Mm-hmm. Okay, so yeah. We're going to see how this work out. So I'm listening to, I'm going to argue with y'all, I don't know why, well, just for the fun of it. But I am listening to what y'all are saying and implementing what y'all are saying, and I can say, man, this shit working.
That's cool, man. And I mean, I applaud you because the whole thing, and this is why we're all doing this too, the whole thing, and the biggest lesson for me, it ain't stuff that, the stuff that y'all say works. All this was just passed down. We ain't came up with nothing new. I wish I could take credit for it and everything, but how, like I said, love me or hate me, anybody out there that's watching or whatever, the one thing that I have that I want to share, because it was shared with me, is that you don't worry about whether you've got all the answers. You just got to listen to what's in front of you and know that the answer is in that, or the situation. If you just stay open to that, it'll come to you. So it's like when we talk about all these different ways of working and workflow and everything, the biggest thing that you guys will always see me having you come back to is stay open, because you're getting so many options out here and everything, and that's all great, but I know what's up as far as been there, and I'm a sponge as far as getting information. And when somebody pulled me aside and said, listen, man, you're doing too much, that's why you're pretty good. We can see your talent and all that and everything, but that's why this ain't coming together. That's why that ain't coming together. Or this is why somebody's, your thing was kind of good, but somebody else knocked you out the box because here's what they did, and usually it would always be something subtractives. It's like, Khaliq, you went beyond, you went too much because you didn't listen to the core, or you started overdoing stuff and you didn't check it out. I used to be, I love effects. I'm a guy that I love effects. So I used to go crazy with them, and some artists that I work with, some record labels and everything, and they love it because I come up with something weird and different. But see, this is why I love having the weird conversation with you, Mod, because see, I get it. I'm the guy that was weird, and I embraced my weirdness. But I also had to know that I had to control it too, because sometimes that just ain't gonna happen. When I transferred over, and when Pro Tools first started coming on the scene, and then hip hop started coming on the scene, and when I worked with some early hip hop artists and stuff like that, they didn't like none of that shit. I had to learn that lesson. It's like, I think I'm going to get in here and blow them away with all these effects and tricks and everything. And it's like, nah, man, that's too much, so it was a lesson I had to learn,
Khaliq, I wanted to add something. A couple things, and it connects to what you guys are talking about. The thing that I wish I would have gotten earlier was the direct connection between music and structure, because I came into it leaning on technology. So I was sound-based. I had to learn to be song-based in my mentality. Consequently now, because I can switch and know both worlds, when I work with people, I can tell whether they're song-based or sound-based. When I say song-based, it means that the sensitivity is to the structure of the music, what's going on, and they're listening and they're putting together, they're listening to the notes, they're listening to the transitions, they're listening to all these elements along with the feel and all these other nuances. And the sounds come in as the song develops. Now there are some people, and this is a large portion nowadays, who are sound-based. This even goes back to artists that we work with who are from years ago who didn't necessarily read, but they had a sound they had with a couple of pedals and this and that pedal and that sound would be the inspiration to write a song a certain way, and they were sound-based in what they were doing because they were triggering their creativity off of a sound. So the thing is, both schools of thought work, and you need them because you can't just sit and be sound-based, because like Khaliq said, you can easily get lost in what you think is cool, but you're not listening to the basic element of what the artist or the writer is trying to deliver. And this is for writers as well as artists, because not everybody wants to be an artist, but when people are writing, they should write and write from a song-based perspective and try and write something from a sound-based perspective, and you see what I'm talking about. The sound-based perspective by itself will lead you in a whole nother direction, and sometimes your options are limited because you're just continuously finding hot shit that sounds good, right? With song-based production, you're going somewhere. There's a definitive beginning, middle, end. There's a destination. There's a little bit more of a roadmap sometimes, and it helps when you can massage them both into existence. I did not get the connection till I got out of school and understood why I had to sit in music classes and learn this secondary language, I thought. Because I already knew technology-wise what was going on. I thought that was the primary. I thought, well, I know how to record, I know electronics, whatever. You know, but it wasn't a whatever until I saw people doing it at a high caliber level, and I am going like, wow, as quick as I can think about what the circuit is doing, they can think about what music they want to play originally and change it. One guy will just say to somebody, no, cut that off and go here, and they'll do it. And I'm in awe of what they're doing now from a musical's perspective, but I thought up until that point, it was all sound and technology based. Right? Yeah. So it gave me a better appreciation for the whole exchange that goes on. You know, knowing these tricks and having the plugins now is great, but it also helps if you're can admit that there's some areas that you're weak in, and it doesn't mean everybody has to go out here and learn sight reading. It just means get next to somebody who has a little bit more sound structure in traditional music and theory, or is somebody who plays an instrument, so you can learn the perspective. I mean, I'll say the same thing for sounds. When I listen to sounds, because I was involved in the development of machines, I did not get the play relationship until I had to go back and say, let me hear what an oboe sounds like. Because in school, I did not pay attention to this is an oboe, this is a this is a... Yeah. We're developing sounds, and this sounds like an oboe, this is a string ensemble. I had to learn about orchestra position and all these things. So, and it helps you guys, because when you're faking strings on your chord, right, it sure helps if you understand what a real orchestra perspective is like, so you know when you're putting something together if it sounds believable or not. Yeah. Right? If you want it to be believable. All the little nuances, you know. Yeah. But that play relationship, man, and I learned a lot from mixing live. Being forced to mix live, I learned from a song perspective. It forced me to be an engineer coming from a song perspective, because I had to learn how to mix the hit and sound like the hit. I couldn't get lost in the fact that I had these effects and I wanted to make it an effect party. You know.
That's a great thing for Workflow, Dave, talking about live, because and I want you to expand on it a little bit more. I went out and you know, went and did live tours for a few people for a while and everything. And my workflow for live, I had to find that I had to completely change it over for live versus studio, because when I first went out live, and first person I went out live with was Jeffrey Osborne. We went on a world tour and all that, and Jeffrey booked me in because he's like, he loved what I did in the studio, so he's like, I want you to come on the road. And the first few gigs we did live, I was getting nothing but compliments. Man, sounds just like the record, man, just like, because Dave will tell you, I took my own racks of my studio gear out on the road. I mean, all this expensive equipment, so it was sounding great until I got into the first jacked up gig that we had, and it was just awful. Was we were in a place that served as normally it was a hockey stadium. I forget where it was, but it was like, it might have been in Chicago or some big old giant hockey stadium, the worst acoustics in the world, ringing and everything. All that studio stuff that I had did not matter because it sounded like hell. All the effects that I normally would put on and have Jeffrey's voice all lush and everything, all that, the room was just one big echo chamber. So I didn't know that, well, you got to take all that stuff off or you're just going to have madness. My workflow, that was a big, huge lesson that I learned on that one. Changing up your workflow according to what's needed for the situation, knowing what's going on with the song, knowing what's going on with live. Go ahead, Dave. Talk about some live stuff.
When Bill was mentioning the whole parallel thing, from doing live sound, that's how I got a lot of really hard lessons on how to use parallel situations, because you're using wet mix, dry mix. You're trying to strengthen it up and do everything you can to give yourself options. And if you go to a venue and you only have 2 reverbs, you're obviously going to have to say, okay, I got to go to 1 reverb, and the other's going to have to be a delay, because there's other stuff you got to do. And so you got to make very quick decisions. You got to know the material, make very quick decisions, and figure out how can I get the most out of the least if I'm not carrying it with me. And just the ability to make decisions based on the music, it puts you into that mentality, because and I've seen those situations with Khaliq. We did a gig together where we switched off. I used to love when he would do his thing because he has such a science to how he does it, and I kind of use Daniel Boone kind of shit. I just go in and listen, pull it up, and start with the thing and go at it and wait till the club fills up, because I know instinctively that certain elements are going to do certain things. But I know, he would get in there, man, and it would be a show. It would be a show.
Well, the funny thing is that, and see, what I learned from Dave, like I said, you have to switch up your workflow, because like I said, I would do my thing, be all into this and everything, because I'm used to this controlled environment, controlled workflow. But nobody had ever interjected chaos into my workflow before until you go out doing it live. I can control my chaos in the studio. So live, the first time when I started getting the chaos thrown at me from all different ways and everything, certain types of situations, me and Dave would switch off, because Dave would know, I'm good for this type of chaos, man. I'm going to do this today, and then you go back and be the support. Then another type of situation to come up, it's like, okay, well, this is a whole different thing, Khaliq. You do that out there, and then I'm going to go back and be the support, because we'll both be more effective in the certain roles. But we had to learn that in real time, and me especially, because Dave was used to doing live and going out and doing things like that. And Dave started out as a DJ, so he's used to dealing with crowds and stuff like that. Now, I started out as a musician, so I could, if they had put a guitar in my hand or something, I could control the situation. but that wasn't going to happen for what I was out there for. So I had to learn and lean on him a lot for some lessons in that way.
It's a listening perspective thing. Anybody out there who has DJ'd, and I always say there's so many things you learn inherently from DJing instinctively that you don't even realize, because DJing teaches you just how to focus on 2 things at one time. You're focusing on the material that's coming, you're focusing on the effect of the crowd, so you're taking all that in, and you're trying to transition into records. At that time, they didn't have all the stuff they have now, but trying to transition and not lose and create dead air and keep the pace of the party going. So there's a lot to do, but it taught you a relationship to sound. It also taught you off-axis monitoring, because the DJ booth was not always in the center. Sometimes it was in the closet. Sometimes it was under the steps. You know, off-axis monitoring is a skill, because you have to learn what sounds good when you're not in a prime listening spot.
Yep.
You got to know that when people come in an arena, that bass frequencies are the first frequencies that humans hear. Consequently, when you get a large mass of people, that's why there's so many subs usually underneath the stage, because it's soaking up everybody who's on the ground crowded around the stage. Because that's the first frequency everybody hears. There's so much put into it because it's got to propel. So there's a lot of things that, again, you learn that relationship. You learn the tunes, and you start to put it all together. But the really key for me was that link to music, the link to actually doing the work and learning what the instrumentation was, what it sounded like, and how it was used. You know, I took for granted the orchestra was just something I saw in a Bugs Bunny cartoon, right? I didn't really take it seriously because it was boring recording when I was in school. Nobody wanted to record the ensemble, you know. But you transitionally, you get out of there and you do a string date, then you're seeing elements of a song. You're not seeing the whole song, you're seeing elements put together. And when the final product is done, those elements are so strong, but you never realize it when you're watching it being built.
How many people here have ever heard or recorded a live orchestra? Or gone to an orchestra or anything like that?
See,
I've done quartets, but not orchestras.
A string quartet?
Yep.
That's cool though. Yeah, yeah. How'd you like it? And what did you do for your workflow for that? What we're talking about?
Really fun. Like, it was in a really old church over here in the UK, and I didn't really have. I was taking all the gear from the other side of the country, from my university back home, to record it for my friend who's a cello teacher. It was like a cello recital, and there was quartets and a duo I was playing. And I couldn't get so much stuff for me, so I managed to take 2 U87s with me, just out, and I put one. I think like where the stage was, the belfry was behind it, so it's like massive space, and the place sounded wonderful. So I decided to put one mic in the belfry to pick up all the reverb, and then I think.
Explain to us over here, what is the belfry?
Oh, belfry, okay. So you know, like a church or like cathedral tower. So basically on the inside it's all hollow. It's usually like, you know, candles and chandeliers and stuff. So it's just like a big echo chamber.
Yeah.
So I put a mic there, and then I just put the other U87 basically bang in the front of the stage, because quartets kind of like organize themselves with how they sound, so they're playing and they're very organic and dynamic and know when to play loud and quieter, so you don't really have to.
Quick question for you. So the quartet, just so for those who may not know, what was it, 2 violins, viola, and a cello?
Yes. Yeah, so 2 violins. Actually, no, like it was 2 cellos, a viola, and a violin.
Oh, okay, 2 cellos. Okay.
Yeah. I just put the one mic in front of them, because they kind of. You don't have to separate it, as it's like one sound and they play together as, you know, one piece. It's a really beautiful thing working with strings, and in a nice environment where the reverb just carries everything, and everything kind of like it's just waves of sound. It can be quite a daunting job, but you just got to be really simple with it.
That's all you used was 287s, or
yeah, 280. That's all I had on me at the time.
Okay, yeah. So you just mic'd them up in a stereo setup.
Yeah. So sorry. No, sorry. I had 3 U87s on me.
Just explain your workflow, how you approach micing them and everything.
Well, sorry. I had the stereo pair of U87s, and how do I have it now?
Did you use a Deca tree or just space pair and spot mics or anything?
I think it was just a spaced pair at the front of the stage. It was quite a small stage, and then the one behind them in the belfry to pick up all the tower to pick up all the like really long reverbs and stuff. Cool. So yeah, it's just simplicity. I think when you can find yourself to be quite daunted by, you know, a lot of musicians who can play really well. I think if you do stuff quite simple, it can really help. Like I've done choirs before as well, and you know, just having two mics and a stereo pair far enough away from them in a really nice space makes your life so simple, because they're great musicians. They control what they do. So, you know,
Very cool.
sometimes you've got to trust the people you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Now I got Gerald. You've been up here a little quiet, bro. So we got to put you on center stage here. Come on down, partner. Talk to us a little bit. We're talking today about workflow and some of the things that you wish you would have known, or the things you've learned in your workflow that have benefited you now. And just tell us a little bit about who you are.
Um,
Did we lose you? I don't hear any audio. Talk to us.
how about now?
Yeah, got you.
Okay. My name is Jarrell, and I'm a recently graduated student from an audio engineering program. I've been involved in production of music and recording of music really as a hobby for about the past 6 years, and done some things along the way, but I say it's a hobby because it hasn't really turned a coin per se, you know what I mean? Like, this is not hasn't become a main source of income just yet.
Mm-hmm.
As far as my workflow and how I could say I wish it would have gone down like this, I see the value of one-on-one instruction, especially beginning, and that was something that I didn't really get. Again, I tried to put together like a quilt with a bunch of different people's little tricks and tips and things I found on my own. And school was my real first exposure to a building blocks type of concept, where let's teach you something foundational and build upon it. So if anything, I would like to say I wish that it would have been like that from day one.
Gotcha, yeah. I agree. You know, that's I hear that all the time from my students as well, because they, like I said, there's tons of information out here, but what's happening now is everybody's, you know, getting, like you said, what'd you call it, a quilt? Patchwork quilt, you know, now. Yeah, so a little bit from here, and you know, they don't have a structured way of getting it together. So this is one of the things that has been working really good for me and my students, as far as back and forth. They're like, Khaliq, you're helping us put it all together in a structured way where it's more effective, as opposed to bits and pieces here, you know. And it gets people there faster when you have some kind of at least one person that can guide through and hear the things that you can't hear necessarily, and envision the things that you're trying to get to, you know. That's what really made all the difference for me, you know. What was I going to ask you then too? Where are you located, man? And you know, tell us, even though this isn't the main thing you're doing, you're obviously into music, so you're working towards it. So just tell us a little bit more about what you're trying to achieve, and why are you here on the Hangout with us? Where you trying to go?
I'm located in Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm very passionate about audio, and I'm a real techie type person. And I just think that this is it's a good situation for me. I love music. I've always loved music. Coming up through high school, I was in a drill team. I played drums, you know, marching band style, and just have always had an affection for music. And so this kind of feeds both sides of me as far as what I'm passionate about. I'm passionate about knowing how something works, and I'm passionate about the magic that is music, man. You know, putting sounds together into something that speaks to you or it makes sense. So I love those two things, and I've just finished school. I'm currently interning, learning how to become a tracking engineer at a local studio. I have an opportunity in front of me to do some mixing with an industry-signed songwriter producer, and I really just want this to turn into something that repays me, you know, for what I put into it. I'll gladly do it for free, of course, but we like money, and we needed to do things in this world in order to have options in this world. So, you know, with a humble spirit in mind, I definitely want this to move towards something that brings me more than just joy. You know what I mean?
Well, like Zig Ziglar said, if you help enough people you get what they want, then you'll get what you want. you know.
Exactly.
And
And
I
I
like one other
definitely,
thing that you said too about it being magical. Music is magical. So throwing in another little quote, Sir Thomas Beecham said, uh, great music is that which penetrates the ear with facility and leaves the memory with difficulty. Magical music never leaves the memory. So, you know, that's what it is for me too. Music has to be magical, and if it isn't, you have to make it magical.
right
Hey,
on.
bro, hit Khaliq and Dave with your question, bro. Let them know what you really came here for.
Trying to figure out how to get paid. He just said it.
Hey,
No, he has a specific question for you guys.
Okay, well, bring it on, bro.
Okay, I shared this with Bill and my Mott earlier, and I just want to read it off here. I've been offered an opportunity and I need some sage advice. I have a songwriter producer that is signed to a major who is looking for an engineer to mix the demo songs that will be sent to the label for approval. It's an internship at this point with the promise of payment once a deal is secured for his artist or artists. How should this agreement be structured? Compensation, points, etc. And this person has a pub deal, by the way.
How much experience do you have mixing a song? How many songs have you successfully mixed?
When you say successfully mixed, can you quantify that?
Okay, you've already answered my question. So here's what's up. Because and this is just my perspective. You're looking to create some contractual terms to fulfill an obligation that you've never fully run the course. Now, while you're fresh out of school, you're getting experience, you're in this position. I don't know if the situation is one where you can go all the way to the goal line and be having points and things like that. You can develop a back end if somebody doesn't want to pay you a lot of money up front. I would say figure out what your hourly worth is as an engineer. Figure out what your hourly worth is as an engineer. Do a couple of songs with them to figure out how long it takes you to get through the material that you're going to work with them, and probably come up with a rate that you could say, okay, I can work with you for this thing for X amount of dollars, or create a way to get there in baby steps. But unless you have a pedigree where you've got a track record, somebody in a situation like that could very easily take advantage of you because they know you're inexperienced.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I got another quick question for you too. You said this person has they're signed to a major label and they have a publishing deal as well?
Correct. That is, I think, the extent of their relationship with the label is they have a pub deal.
How long? Oh, okay. So they're not signed to the label as an artist. Is that what you're saying? They're
I don't
signed.
think.
So you'd be an engineer for his publishing company.
Correct.
To help him do. Okay. There's several ways you can do it. I mean, as somebody, I can tell you, as somebody who started out early on and all those kind of things were thrown at me as well, and I still have a couple of worthless contracts in my closet, of back end deals, and we're gonna pay you on the back end, or we'll give you a piece of publishing and all that. With that all being said, I did all of those things as a calculated risk to bet on me, and it worked out. It paid off. I did not. You hope that you're going to get paid. 96% of artists that are signed to these major labels and things like that don't make a dime, or most of them don't even get their projects put out or things like that. So a back end deal is a pipe dream. I don't know of anybody that really has benefited from it or anything has come out. I'm not saying it can't happen, but it definitely is one of those a needle in a haystack, straw in a hurricane type of things, because you're more than likely not going to make any money if you do that project for them on a deal based on that. Everybody wants to make it seem like, okay, well, we're going to give you all this and big points and such. And as soon as the record's out and all that, most records never get released, and the ones that do never make any kind of money, especially with all the recoupment and everything that's in there. You're probably never going to see any money like that. Now, with it being with a publishing company, that's a little bit better, to be honest with you, because you can also negotiate to get part of ownership of in publishing, you know, which is very different than being part of an artist deal, you know. Publishing can have the potential, if you can get a piece of that and still realize that you may not ever receive any money. But here's the difference. Since publishing is going to last and can be repurposed in many different ways, you know, they may be submitting it to a record label, some artist or whatever, may never get picked up, but it may get put into as background music in a TV show or licensed out to some other things. So there's other ways that you can potentially make money on that, you know. So I would secure some kind of thing and recognize that it's a calculated risk to simply do it. You know, the best of both worlds is to work out your figures first. You know, like Dave suggested, you know, based on where you are at in your career now, what the going rate of somebody at your level is, what they would normally get, so that the numbers don't freak anybody out and all that, you know. Make it real, list it out on paper, and then make things getting a real tangible value on the services. Put a limiter on it, a cap, first of all, as far as how many hours, so that you don't leave yourself in an open-ended situation where you have to finish and you just, it never ends. They just keep getting on to you, because I've been in situations where I got in a thing where I didn't put a limiter on it. They kept me constantly doing more and more and more and more, and there was just never any end, you know. And some people did it on purpose, you know. And some,
You know,
go ahead, Dave.
yeah, the other thing I want to add is that, you know, the fact that somebody has a publishing deal, that's kind of, that's good to know, and it's information, but you can never look in somebody else's wallet, okay? And that's what tendency is to, if you know something about somebody, you're going to look in their wallet, and then you're going to try and forecast what they have left for you. You can't really do that. You can just take it in as information and know that, okay, cool, at least he's set up to this level. That means that at the very least you can have a financial conversation with him, and he's not going to think you're crazy, because he's also done that to secure whatever the thing is. But you got to really kind of take the information and use it in a more exploratory fashion. You got to develop some dialogues and some ways to talk in and about compensation. You can also see if you can get compensated directly from the publishing company, because sometimes they do that.
Well, that's the way to do it. That's what I was saying with the publishing, because he is publishing. What you have to do is negotiate a publishing deal for yourself. You're going to negotiate part of publishing splits for yourself. You know, so that has nothing to do with that person at the point. You don't have to even worry about looking in their wallet, because the deal that you structure will be giving you your points. You know, basically, there's several ways to do it. If that person has their own publishing company and they're splitting with the publishing company of the record label, you can get publishing on the publishing side of their thing. And if it's in songwriting, because there's two sides of that, you can figure out the best way to do it. You can either do it as a songwriter, as a publisher, or a little bit of both, you know. But that money comes directly from the major publishing company that's doing the payout to them. That way you don't have to rely on them to give you your money.
And, you know, the other thing, too, is was he expecting you to use your gear, or is there a studio that he's going to use, or is he going to use the studio you're interning in? What's that situation? Because in the past I have seen people work deals where they bring somebody in to work in a studio, and their fee is wrapped inside of the cost of the studio.
He has his own facility.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So he's already outlaid. So that's cool. If he's already got his own facility, he's already outlaid. I would say the main thing is to at least sit down and have a one-on-one with him about you know, making sure that you're reimbursed for your time, because it's only fair. And he's already made the investment in a place to work. And while you are interning somewhere, your whole career is not going to be based on interning. It's going to be based on doing some things that are actually work for hire. So, you know, develop a conversation that at least gets you to where you're not considered, oh, he's the guy who just got out of school.
And does he know that you just got out of school?
He does.
Okay. Well, that's okay. Yeah. Let me ask you this now. Based on maybe some other people that you know in your area in Atlanta, for people that have just kind of gotten out of school and gotten going, do you know anybody that's getting paid at all? what would you say they're getting? I'm gonna take a rough guess just to get you started and tell me if I'm in the ballpark. But I would take a rough guess for somebody just coming right out of school, and if they have decent skills, they could probably get 25, $30 an hour.
Yeah, you're right there. 25 an hour.
That's Khaliq. That's about right down
Yeah.
here.
Okay. Yeah. And that makes sense then. So what you got to do is see what most people get caught up is they never run the numbers. Run the numbers. You know, you should know how much your time is. Run those numbers and put them out. Don't talk it to somebody. You need to write it down. And when you have the next conversation with him, you need to be able to pull out something and show him facts and figures so that it makes sense. Okay, well, check it out. Here's what's up and everything. I think this is fair. And then they're going to calculate in their mind. Okay, yeah, that's about right. If I didn't have you and I had to still go get somebody, that's probably about what I'm ready to spend, $25 an hour. Okay, they're going to think about that. They already have run those numbers for them. They're counting on you to have not run the numbers. So when you do that, you got to figure out what a say a 12-hour day is probably going to be an average day. So then you start running your numbers of what that's going to be. Start thinking about how that starts adding up over the course of base it on a 5-day week or whatever, or if you just go through. If you go beyond that time, you gotta say if we go beyond this time. Then you can go into what everybody else does. Musicians go into golden time and things like that. So you got to decide whether you're going to figure that in or if it's going to be an all-inclusive, but we're going to base it on X amount of hours per day, and that's where we cap it at. Once you run these numbers and have some numbers, then you can adjust the numbers. They're up to you then. You know, what I would suggest probably is put the numbers out so that you establish a value for yourself. Real numbers that make sense. It's not hyped up. You're not coming in and being ridiculous. Oh, that's ridiculous, man. Ain't nobody gonna pay you new. No, this is what the average cap will get out here. It makes sense. They're gonna see that and say, okay, yeah, I see what's up. This is why I say have it written down, because if you try to talk it, you may jumble up your words. You may get into a verbal argument that takes you off. Can't nobody argue with facts and figures that are kind of the standard, you know, the benchmark out there. Then it'll make sense. You've established a value for yourself for the time. Now, once you establish the value for yourself, then you can discount the value whatever way you want, or give them a way where you keep your value. What I would suggest is keep your value up there high, and then give them a discount where you get some money now, because it's like, hey, I gotta pay bills, I gotta come to you, I got transportation, I got little things that I need to take care of so that I can focus right on your project. So why don't we do this? Here's the value. Here's what this would cost, and I think this is fair in the right place. Agree, get them to agree. Yeah, that's am I being fair? Okay, so here's what I'm willing to do. Let's work this out where let's work a deal. You want to do a back end thing. Well, I can't do 100% back end, and here's why. You got to give them a reason why. The reason why is, well, I got to live. Obviously I need something to just keep me going, or else I'm going to be stressed out while I'm working with you. I ain't going to have full thing. So I want to give you the very best of me. So can we do this? Why don't we meet somewhere in the middle? Instead of this, can you do like 15 or 10 or whatever you feel comfortable with. You work it out and then do the back end and work out another deal. Maybe give me 5% of the publishing on a song or two, or here or there, or whatever you guys want to work out. Say, and then if something happens, then I can get it later on, and then you work out a separate deal on that. But I would get something, because what that does is it makes them put some skin in the game. You're putting some skin in the game with your time, and everybody benefits, because you're still going to be learning in his environment. You're using his gear, and you're actually going to be honing your craft to potentially become the go-to guy for this person who already has an in. They're already in a record label. They already got a publishing thing and all that. So that's great for you, So make it easy for him to put you on in some kind of way where it makes sense. It just like, okay, that's win-win for both of us. I understand everybody's got to make some money. So, okay, I can do that. You know what I'm saying? It'll be an easier conversation if you do the work up front and then present them with something that is an irresistible offer. It'll make sense.
Okay.
Yeah. Hey, that's a good point, Khaliq. I had the same thoughts in my mind initially as well, with similar situations. Yeah, definitely. And Jarrell, we definitely need to link up. I'm in Atlanta. Same type of situation. Love music. Been in bands. Growing up. You know, same situation. So yeah, we need to link up. You know.
All right, man. We'll do it.
Right.
Yeah, you guys should hit Tremaine while he's down there too, because he's down.
I just hit him too.
Yeah,
I just hit him right.
definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been back and forth for the last couple months. So yeah, I hit him. So hopefully we'll link up soon.
Now, you know what I want to ask, Bill. I want to ask you because, you know, do you get hit with that? I know if you have got hit with it, it's going to be more on the video side, but still, it's the same principle. So, what would you say? And have you ever had to make any deals like that to make something work for somebody?
You mean as far as what Gerald was saying? You mean as far as the you know?
Yeah, similar type of scenario. They ain't got the money to pay you your worth, but they want to work some kind of deal with you to do it. You know, not talking about necessarily intern, but you know, basically they want to make a deal. That's all.
Well, there are a couple things. I mean, first of all, it's like you said. First of all, it depends on what you need to actually live. So, you know, if you need X amount of money to live and they're not offering you that, that's it. There's no deal. But if you don't, then, and they're saying, okay, I can pay you this, but it's not the same amount as what you feel like your time is worth, then you can tell them to do other things, such as get you other business. You know what I'm saying? So you can say, all right, if you, and the getting the business part comes before the doing the work part, but
yeah, hello.
like, okay, if you get, you know what I'm saying? If you get me, you know, if you get me work from some company or agency or label or other person or whatever at my rate, then I'll do this project for you at the rate that you can afford. You know what I'm saying? Or if you, okay, you have this much money, so I'm going to need you to publicize me on all of your social media outlets so that now my name goes around. You know what I'm saying? So now you're getting basically, this is the point. You have to get something out of it. Yeah. Whatever the actual money is plus what they're giving you has to equal what you would have charged them.
Right.
You know? So and then you also have to consider, like you guys just finished saying, whether this is a project that might jump off and really go somewhere, or you might want your name attached to this project, because your name, if it's that type of project, your name being attached to it could be worth more than the money you would have made from that one project.
Absolutely.
See what I'm saying? So you might do a project for this person and then nobody knows it, and you make whatever, let's say $200. But then let's say you don't make $200 and people know that you did it, and this thing becomes really big, and then people say, wow, who helped him with that, or who was part of the process of him making that, and you end up making your money that way.
They always do too when it's something good. Conversely, because I'm the guy that always tries to look at the other side of it too. Conversely, if it's a type of project that ends up where you might not want your name attached to it, then you know, I say
and that's another thing. That might be a stipulation. One of the stipulations to working, because I've done work for people that are not on my resume. So like part of your stipulation might be, I'll do this work. You cannot tell anybody I did it.
Have standards. Have standards.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because that can be just as harmful.
Late night standards.
Steve holding up.
Yeah. And Bill said something very, very powerful as far as the social media, because see, that's capital. You know, so if you can't get it one way, you get your capital another way. You know, so what he said was a huge thing. I hope you realize the power of what he just stated.
I got it.
Mayoresh is on his way out. What's up, dude?
Oh yeah, Mayoresh wanted to say something, man. Go ahead. I meant to get back to you earlier. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I'm just leaving now. It's early in the morning and just sort of doing the early morning stuff. My wife has just woken up, so
my man's a soldier.
Yeah. So I better get ready and do things. Thanks for the hangout.
All right,
okay,
guys.
buddy.
We'll stay in touch.
Have a great time, man.
All right.
Did y'all see the book Dave was holding up?
Sorry?
Well,
Dave
what was you
holding
on?
Oh no, Mayor, it's
there
not
you go.
you.
Yeah, there we go.
Yes.
The business of audio engineering. There you go.
Yeah, it's on Hal Leonard. If you get that book, there's chapters in it that will actually discuss with you how to figure out what you're worth. And there's website and other information on there to give you other databases you can look at. It's even in your region to figure out what's going on.
Yep.
So
Another thing you have to consider is if you're building your portfolio, then that's another consideration, because even if the person doesn't have the rate you actually want, that person can lead to your having a portfolio which will get you that rate in the near future. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's like if it's that type of project, if you really feel like, okay, this is a legit project, you know, it's going to be good, people are going to give me credit for it, blah, 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 you might do it for less. I mean, you still want to tell them, okay, you want to, and there's the other thing, you want to make it clear that your rate is X and you're doing them a favor for doing it for less than X. You know what I'm saying? It's not, oh yeah, I'll do it for less than X, period. It's like, okay, as a favor to you, I'm going to do this. And then you can come back with, now you owe me this. See what I'm saying? If you're going to do that at all. But like Khaliq said, if X is what you need, X is what you have to get, and then you need to not do that project if you can go ahead and deal with somebody else who's really going to pay you what you need.
Yeah, and he said something really powerful too, as far as you know, if you want to do this project and you get you can get a way for him. You know, like, I'm gonna assume that he's got to be pretty good. If he's got a record deal or a publishing deal, he has to have at least a certain base level of skills that got him at least somebody's attention. Okay, so leveraging off of that, when you attaching it, what you potentially want to see from that is that, okay, Bill said that the guy gets you other work and other references and things like that. So you have to think out how you want that to happen and everything, which means you might have to do a little bit of espionage, talking with the guy and just kind of finding out who else is he attached with, who does he resonate with within his publishing company. Is he dealing with other publishing companies or publishers or whatever? Is he you know, where is his aspirations of where he's trying to go, and then find out where the extent of his reach is by doing a little bit of you know, research on what he has available. And then once you have that data in your mindset, figure out what could benefit you the most as well, you know, by him maybe giving you some kind of referral, personal meeting, phone call, sending an email to somebody or whatever to make an introduction. If you get those things, and like Bill was saying, you got to get something like that up front. You know, it's no good to have the information and get a promise, because more than likely promises go away after they've gotten the work out of you. You know, your value immediately goes down. So you got to get them to do it, you know, at least if they don't do it up front, say maybe do the first thing, and you're always taking a bet on yourself, on the work that you do is going to be satisfactory. So maybe work for a week and have it stipulated with him, you know, where you guys have it structured. Okay, well, yeah, we can do this. I'll tell you what, let's get started and such. Let's do this minimal amount of money to get going, just so that I can keep my sustained thing. But then after a week, you know, you maybe get him, because of the information that you got, can you give me a little personal recommendation or introduction to such and such person or persons, really a chain, because you want to get as many of the 6 degrees of separation as you can from as many different point sources. So, you know, like, after do a little bit, you know, you're investing, because many things that could happen is you work and it starts working out good, and then at the end of that time, you're going to put the test on him to live up to his side. You've done your thing, you've delivered. Okay, let's see what he's going to do. And then you don't do anything beyond that, because you want to see what kind of man or woman or whoever it is you're dealing with, if they're going to live up to their word. If they do, then you keep going to the next chunk. And if they do, you keep going to the next chunk. If they don't, you're going to, you know, you'll get caught up, and you only wasted a week, you know.
Yeah, and the other thing is, you got to make sure when somebody comes to you knowing that you're just out of school and they're asking you, here, think about this for a second. Here's somebody with an established deal of some type. They know you're fresh out of school, but they've got a commitment that they need some mixes on. Okay, think about it for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Make sure that mixing ain't fixing. Okay, they'll embroil you in a conversation to pass the carrot in front of you and dangle it and say, oh, I got an opportunity to mix for this cat over here.
Mm-hmm.
When in actuality, the hard drive they hand you is full of amplified sand, and you got to figure a way through it and fix it all before you can even, let alone get to mix, if that's even their intent. Sometimes the intent is born out of laziness and sloppy work. And I have to speak to the negative aspect of human behavior, because that's an established thing that's out there. There are some people out there who just lie their ass off. Okay?
Did you hear what Mr. Hampton said? Did you hear that?
They just, in their terms, they're looking at giving you a great opportunity. In reality, they're halfway done and they're lazy, don't want to finish, and they don't have a process. Their process is to engage whoever they can to help, because they spent all of whatever advance money they had, and so now they go around preying upon people fresh out of school. This is a reality. I'm not saying it's going to happen to you. I'm just saying I've been on the earth a little bit longer than you. I've seen many realities unfold like that. So just understand that, it's not cool, but just looking at the limited information, if we all know you're right out of school, and my first question was, how many successful mixes have you finished at this point in your career? And you're like, well, how do you want? Well, this guy already is in a thing where he's gone around, he's done something successfully where he's at a published place, which means he knows the process, which means he knows why he's coming to you, right? So
plus, that speaks highly of you too. For him to have asked and considered you, you've got to have a certain skill level that you learn. So one of the first things I would suggest to you too is never again say I'm just out of school. Never again say that.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they don't need to know that. They're going to use that against you. So never again say that part of it.
Tell them Dave and Khaliq told
you.
Could I add one thing to that?
Go ahead.
Just that last thing that you said was key. When I get students in my school, usually the first level of class, I have a discussion with them in the intro to audio class, and I say, look, from this point on, I treat everybody in this room as a professional, right? No matter what your skill level, right? I put that out there. I said, look, and again, not hitting on any of the people that do it on the weekends or, the bedroom studios and things of that sort, but I said, look, you come to the school for a reason. Hey, from day one, right now, you're a professional. You are learning, yes, but I'll consider everybody in this room right now a professional. And hopefully that sticks with them, so when you do get out of school, and I'm coming in on the tail end of the conversation, but when you do get out of school, look, I'm a professional. I may not have the experience level, but I consider myself professional. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's so tales time and time again, my own tale included, is where you get into a situation. I mean, I went from being an assistant engineer to first engineer within 6 months, just because I was around, and I didn't go to any school or anything, so I didn't know anything. It was all on the job training, and then a situation came up where I got thrown in the mix. And I couldn't say, I didn't know, I was like, okay, all right, cool. I'm nervous and just sweating bullets, but I got to figure it out, But the one thing is never say that, I'm fresh out of school and everything, and give them that impression, because they're going to use that against you as a weakness. People can kind of tell. You ain't got to have it perfect and all that. And the good thing that you guys have now, everybody that's watching us and listening to this conversation, what we want you to learn from this is you have more resources than any of us did. There's only more getting added all the time. So this stuff didn't exist when me and Dave first started. It really didn't exist before me and Dave started, from the people we learned from. They had to invent stuff. And so, if the one thing is that don't be afraid, just go in and do it. Treat your mindset as, I am in this situation, so I deserve to be here, I don't have to know everything, but I deserve to be here. I'm going to make it happen and do whatever it takes, You, Jarrell said you love music and you started it out and you want to make this pay. That's your mindset that's really going to bring you everything that you want on that more than anything.
All right.
Yep.
Does that help?
Hey, also to add to that, being in other industries, like many of everyone here, you can kind of feel the vibe out on the people that you're working with. Like, you can tell if they're on some shady type of, shenanigans, like they want to hey, what about the back end? We hear it all the time. I'll put my cousin, I'll let somebody else know about what you're doing if you do X, Y, Z. Just handle the business up front. That's basically it.
Yeah. And that's why I say you do the research and pick your resources, because people can tell you anything and usually will, oh yeah, I can, oh don't worry, I'll hook you up. I know such and such president, and don't worry, we got it, man. I got you hooked up, and it's a much harder conversation to have once the work has gotten started and everything, because they'll hold the work and everything over your head. Be like, well, okay, do this first and then I'll do it. No, you got to get these things straight up front, or else they're gonna blackmail you with them. If they've got any kind of shadiness in them, like he was saying.
Why's it gotta be blackmail, man?
Here we go.
I say, oh yeah, okay.
I was waiting for it.
They're gonna greenmail you, man.
Gonna greenmail you.
All right, man. So that's it. Jason said, "Pay me first. Money talks."
Mm-hmm.
And like I was saying, and Bill was saying, because I consider there's all kinds of a currency out there. So just be creative about what kind of currency you want what's going to build you and build your career and your value the fastest. And be sure. See, one thing you said, this guy has you kind of adjusted it based on what you first said, because at first I thought you were saying he had a major label deal. Then now it's seeming to me like he has a publishing deal with a major label publishing company and maybe an affiliation. So you need to dig in a little bit farther on that to be sure that that is real. Is that just something that's said, or is that real? Because he could have for example, he could have a publishing deal with a offshoot of a publisher that's kind of the second cousin of the third brother of such and such. They ain't really with the company, but you know what I'm saying. You got to do your due diligence to be sure that that's a real deal there.
Okay.
Do you know that?
Okay.
Are you able to hear me right now?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'm looking at this, and I'll tell you in just a second.
And I was gonna say, it's probably a way you can call and say, hey, I know some business is personal, but you probably can do some kind of research.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Make sure that company is what they say they are.
Yeah, and get him to take you. I mean, if it's a major label too, have you been to the label where it's at? Been to the headquarters, or if the publishing company has a studio?
I actually went yesterday to the Artist Factory where his facility is.
That's his facility.
The Artist Factory is not his facility, but he has a facility inside of the Artist Factory. The Artist Factory, former CEO of Island, builded this facility, and it's like an artist development facility. Everything is under one roof.
Okay.
A room, B room, studio, multiple production rooms, choreography, all of that stuff is done there.
And you're sure that everybody that's in there is in-house part of the thing, because a lot of these places can be owned by a major player, but just simply rented out rooms. So just
and that's
because they're in the building,
I asked him if he was renting out the space there, and he told me that he was.
He was. So,
he is renting out the space there. Yeah.
One of the other things I always used to do was I would contact 3 or 4 people to see if they had ever done business with, or the Google. Okay.
Yeah.
I would just pick up the phone and say, hey, you ever heard of so-and-so and so-and-so? Usually when somebody's established, they've been doing business. It's a big business, but it's a small business. We all have some people in common that we know. If you can get to them and just say, yeah, I'm getting ready to do some business with this guy. I just never did it. I was just checking it out. Have you ever done business? And usually you'll be able to plug in and get the comment, yeah, he's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Or, in some cases I used to get people to say, yeah, just get your money.
Just get your money. Yeah.
I've had famous clients tell me that about other famous clients.
Yeah,
so you'll get it from anybody. Mm-hmm. But the bottom line is that street cred and just the street relationship of saying, let me call so and so. They do a lot of work. Let me call so and so. It looks like he mixed his last record, or whatever. And there's nothing wrong with doing that. You're just checking it out. You're just checking it out.
Yeah.
It's trust is a verifiable. You know what I mean?
That's true. Yeah. Most people leave breadcrumbs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong if he got nothing wrong. You're just doing what you need to do. to protect your sweat equity. Once you give up your sweat equity, that's it, man. That's really what we have as engineers, as independents. We are insurance for artists that we work with, people, and if we can get it up there, that sweat equity is what we're charging them for. We are going to take those things that are worries and concerns for them, and we're going to deal with it. And they're not going to have that as a worry or a concern.
Now, here's another thing too with within those publishing companies, you know, they always have to fill in, you know, with it's for a major label. Of course, obviously, they have to fill in stuff for the artists that are attached to the label. So a publishing company usually knows what is needed, what productions need things, and you should be able to find out kind of what's going on and where the extent of this guy's reach is within that whole process, and get them to make introductions for you within that based on some other things that's coming up. So the main thing is if you can't get your money up front, you know, try to get a portion of it. If you can't get any of it, if they claim that it's just that bad that they ain't got any of it, first of all, be suspicious, but still be open and be creative. That's like, okay, well, you know, because like I said, I've done it many times where I've gone in kind of knowing that I'm probably not going to get paid for this, but let me go in here and I want to do this because I know there's something else over here, and I'm going to make it my mission to figure out what's going on and let them see what's up with me on that as well, you know, without, you know, you're not backstabbing the person. You, like I said, you work it out with them that this is the trade-off, that okay, well, if you can only do this or such and such, you know, what can I do that'll benefit me, like right now after as we finish up yours, I'm gonna deliver for you, but I need something that's gonna help me out as well, you know. And so when you figure out some of these things, and do you know anything, any projects that's coming up? Do you know any people that need such and such? Can you make introductions and all that? These are all conversations, you know, and I've gotten in many doors just from kind of finding out some upcoming things that the thing I was working on now, you know, I do that kind of knowing that I might not get paid for it, or if I get paid, it might be real late or just whatever. I just kind of could feel up front, but I'm like, okay, it's worth me doing it because I see some other stuff that's going to benefit me a little bit more. And then depending on how I went with that person, you know, there's a lot of people that I started out and went into a scenario like that and made the decision. It's like, okay, well, I'm going to do this, but I know I ain't going to mess with them again, you know. But I made the decision consciously to do it because it ended up benefiting me in the long run even more. So, you know, like I said, I'm gonna always bet on me. So yeah. So hopefully, man, I hope that helped. And
Yeah.
you know, anybody else want to say anything about the whole workflow and getting work and all that before we close it out?
Well, the other thing I was going to say to Gerald is you got to also consider volume, because, for instance, I went to, because I edit video, so at some point I went to work for Bloomberg Television, and they just told me straight that what they were offering, what their day rate was for editors, period, was $100 lower than what my actual day rate was. Right? So that was my choice, whether I was going to do it for their rate or I was not going to do it at all, which I chose to do it, and then they're hiring me for like 2 months straight. So as a freelancer, you can either make your day rate 2 days out of 10, or you can make less than your day rate for, 20 days out of 30. So you have to consider that, when sometimes, even because of the volume that they're offering and because of the connections that they're offering, it's not really a bad deal for you to work for less than your rate.
Yeah.
Yeah, first just know what your rate is.
Yeah, that starts
That's
from
the main. Yeah, and Jarrell. Oh, okay, we got it. So Jarrell and Jason, y'all seem to kind of know what's going on up there. So y'all should link up for sure.
Yeah, I'm not gonna talk in a public forum like that.
Yeah, exactly. Not in the public, but yeah, that's good. Y'all should definitely talk. Yeah, cool.
I'll put my email address in the chat box so you can hit me up, and yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah,
I got it.
Cool.
I'm gonna lock it in too, Jason.
Oh yeah, definitely hit me up for real.
Cool, cool. Well, this has been really cool, really helpful. I think, just knowing how to get through it. It all ties into just keeping, like we started out, for those of you that are watching us, we talked about the workflow thing. And we also tied it into, workflow as far as business practices, workflow as far as going out and doing live gigs, workflow as far as just dealing with other people. A lot of ways of thinking about it. This is an ongoing process that we have to keep learning and honing. Right now I'm learning the new skill of workflow for training online. I have different levels of how I do it. I'm learning the workflow of delivering this content by hanging here with people such as Bill and everybody that are real technical on this side of it. And I'm pretty technical, but I know that I'm always trying to fill in my gaps. So I get with people who are better at me than me in certain areas or have different types of experience. And all the people that are joining us from all over the world. So y'all should definitely hang out. There's so many different ways of learning stuff here from so many different point sources. And this is fun, y'all. I love it. So anyway, guys, we're going to get on out of here today, and great hangout again as usual. So I will see you guys on the next one unless somebody has anything else to say. Otherwise, catch y'all later.
That's about it. Good seeing everybody.
I have a question, but if I ask this question, we might be here for a second, so I think I might need to hold it off for the next one, but yeah.
Okay, yeah, hold it off for the next one then. Okay, my brother. All right, well, I'll catch you guys later on. Have a good one.
Hey, Khaliq, thanks for that.
Yo.
No, thanks for the feedback on that mix I sent you, man. I appreciate it.
Oh, man, no problem. You're doing good things, bro. Sounded great.
Appreciate it.
All right, man. Y'all take care. Have a good day.
All right, man.
Catch y'all later.